September 16th, 2025. This is the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearing. We have 5 cases on the agenda and 4 board members are present. Mr. Hoffman is not in attendance. The first RPC is 17014-001 at 1412 North Taft Street. Ms. McCraw, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Thank you very much and good morning all. The subject property is a 254 unit Class A multifamily apartment building with 13,489 square feet of commercial space. It was built in 2014 and it's located in the Clarendon Courthouse submarket of Arlington. And this property is known as the Telus Apartments. Beginning on page 48 of 133 of the BOE memo is where our analysis begins. The tax year 2025 assessed value is $119,800,000, and our requested assessment is $100,694,000. Beginning on pages 49 through 50, we just have a brief written summary of our appeal issues, but these are detailed more closely beginning on page 51. So starting on page 51, we first have our multifamily pro forma. Our income approach is on the very left with the county's income approach on the right column. Our first change, we do adjust the potential gross income here for the apartment units. We increase from the assessor's original 8.2 million to 8.5 million. This aligns more with year-end 2024 actuals, as well as the rent roll as of 12/31/24, which indicates actual rent at the property plus market rent for vacant units that amount to closer to 8.6 million. For parking and other income, we just use year-end 2024 actuals, and we keep the vacancy and collection loss the same as the assessor, which aligns with the tax year 2025 commercial guidelines. Our next change here is just with the expenses. We do have an income history here for this property on page 53 of 133, which just dictates the trailing 3 years of actual income and expense. And as you can see, year-end 24 expenses were over 10,000 per unit, with 2023 expenses about 9,500 per unit, same in 2022. So we do increase our expense estimates for the multifamily portion to 10,000 per unit. Our major change here as well, which we have discussed in previous cases, is we do adjust the base cap rate for this Class A apartment building. We believe that the assessor's base cap rate of 4.3% does not align with market or any investor surveys that we've reviewed. And so we do ask the board to consider an increase to the base cap rate here. Our support is consistent with what we have presented in previous cases, but beginning on page 62 of 131, this is our band of investment calculation, how we arrive at our requested base cap rate of 5.25%. As you can see, we've outlined different surveys, ACLI, RERC, PwC, Corpaz, which do not indicate base cap rates below 5%. Again, as we've outlined before, for PwC, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Apartment Market, both in fourth quarter 2024 and third quarter 2024, indicate an average cap rate of 5.71%, with the range of cap rates at a low end of 5% and at a high end of 6.5% for both these quarters. So the assessor's base cap rate here is below even the bottom of this specific range. Beginning again on pages 65 through 66, we have a brief summary of Arlington County's guideline cap rates versus PwC investor surveys. On page 65, you can see that the assessment office has only increased cap rates from fourth quarter 2021 through fourth quarter 2024, about 8.9%, whereas investor surveys, specifically PwC, indicates changes in cap rates, increases in cap rates of about 21%. And on page 66, you can see that Arlington County and the PwC survey in particular, there's a steep deviation between what the surveys indicate the cap rates are versus where Arlington County has fallen with their cap rates. And then finally, again, on page 63, you can see market cap rate graph here. We've addressed this in the past for Arlington County. You can see the low in 2021, 2022 for cap rates, whereas over the past 3 or 4 years, cap rates have increased by around 100 basis points, which we don't believe is reflected in the Arlington County guidelines. But moving back to our analysis here on page 52 of 131, we do have a separate income pro forma for the commercial space at this property. Again, there is about 13,000 square feet of commercial space here. And the outlook for this space is bleak. Prior to 1/1/25, it was known that the tenant Equalization Real Estate Services would be departing their space at the end of their lease term, which was in April of 2025. We do have a rent roll here, a commercial rent roll on page 54 that summarizes these tenants. So the major tenant here with 6,000 square feet of space, it was known that they would be departing their space at the end of their lease term, which they have. The next tenant, Arlington Chamber of Commerce, their lease was amended in February of 2024, and their base rent was reduced by 7%, and some free rent was provided. And finally, Flex Arlington LLC, they are not paying rent per their lease terms. Their lease indicates that they should pay $6,000 per month in rent, and they are only paying $4,000 per month in rent. So what we have here with this retail space is upcoming vacant square feet that was known prior to 1/1/25 of about 6,000 square feet, which correlates to 44% of the commercial space being vacant and known to become vacant as of 1/1/25. We have a tenant that is not paying rent per their lease, and another tenant whose base rent was reduced by 7% in calendar year 2024. For our analysis, we do, for the purposes of being fair and for settlement, we did just use the guideline outlined vacancy and expense rates of 6% and 16% respectively, and we did update the pass-through income per the actual rent roll. But the reality here is that the going forward expectations for the retail space are grim at best. This space will be losing that almost $280,000 annual rent from Equalization, which is a steep drop off here. And we do ask the board to consider, a greater adjustment than just that 6% vacancy loss. And I know the assessor on review in their test sheet, they have reduced the rent to $36 per square foot, trying to, address these vacancy concerns. But the reality is there's going to be a lot more income loss due to vacancy for the retail space.
Time is up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, excuse me, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth with the county, please.
Yes, good morning, board. Good morning, Ms. McCraw. I will talk about the property and then I will let Derek jump in briefly. So this is a high-rise apartment built in 2013, located within half-mile walking distance from the metro. The amenities being offered are rooftop pool, outdoor terrace, fitness and yoga rooms, business center, and resident lounge. The issue on appeals are the retail pass-through, OPEX, the retail rent, and the cap rate. For 2022 and 2023, we received the internal financial reports and we reconstructed them, as you can see in columns B and C. For 2024, we received the actual I&E survey. We excluded non-allowable expenses, which were asset management fees, partnership owner expenses, and appliance replacements. The 2024 utilities increased over 300% due to the prior period accounting adjustment. Subservices increased by 46% due to an increase in maintenance contracts for boiler and for the pool. And there are a couple of keynotes I would like to address here. The 2024 potential rent for the apartments increased by 5.4%. The retail potential rent increased by 0.46%. Retail potential rent tested in DREA, column F, was below the reported 2024 figures. We did acknowledge the high physical vacancy of 44%. So we did account for that. Also, our projected retail pass-through amount was below the figure reported in 2024 and below the figures projected by the appellants. Looking at the reconstructed 2024 NOI after deducting non-allowable expenses, our projected combined NOI is only $1,727 higher than the 2024 NOI. When it comes to the personal property, because this was touched on during last week's case, our department allows personal property deductions in hotel cases as the furniture and fixtures are essential to the operation and they are directly tied to the income potential. This rationale does not apply to the apartment properties unless they offer furnished units, which generally command higher rental rates. We are not able to estimate by how much do the lobby furniture or office equipment affect the rental rates in the apartments? How much do they contribute to the potential rent dollar-wise? We do not know that, but what we do know when it comes to valuation, that there is no dollar for dollar adjustments. If you install the rooftop terrace and you spend $100,000 on it, does it mean that the property value will increase by $100,000? No. If you put $500 chair in the lobby, does that mean that you get to charge rent $500 more? No. So we are not able to determine the impact of having office equipment. What kind of impact, how much exactly do they add to the value? How much do they impact the potential rent? We can determine what is the contributory value of having furnished units by simply comparing monthly rental rates of those furnished units against the unfurnished units. And this is important. On page 122 and BOE packet, the board can see the business tangible tax the property owners pay can be deducted. This is in line E35. So there's no double taxation. So, Derek, if you would like to hop in.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, board. Good morning, Mr. Carl. Just to follow up, last week we did field some questions on the personal property tax, and I wanted to ensure that we got those answered. We didn't have the breakdown at the time of what was in that personal property tax, but we did go review that. And in this case, it just so happens that this Form 762 is provided. So in looking at that, we did determine that it was not a scenario in which we would deduct below the line, which Annetta spoke to, which are what we consider to be the hotel furnishings and the furnished units and apartments, where we do see a much higher contributory value to the income. But we are deducting that expense in expenses, and it is coming off the NOI. If you didn't have that deduction in there and you took it below the line, it's essentially the same value. But it's not a scenario where we're double taxing. We are accounting for it. And it was also mentioned that this could be included, in our cap rate analysis and within the sales prices that we're seeing. But if that value of we're valuing real property, we don't value personal property. We don't add value for personal property. So we're valuing the income stream of the property. In a sales contract, it can be expressly stated if there is personal property value added for that sales price, it can be taken out, and you can analyze the cap rates that way. In this instance, you're looking at a scenario where if you deducted the $210,000, it's 0.2% of the total value, and would not make much of a change on a cap rate if you did, in fact, take that out. But for us, we just want to make sure that the questions are answered, so we are available. Thank you.
That's it for me. I'm open for questions.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, questions from board members? None? Okay, Ms. Shellsworth, if you take a minute then to wrap up, please.
Yes, so our combined NOI tested is only $1,727 above the projected appellant's reported NOI for 2024. We have accounted for high physical vacancy. We separated both components and we tested applicable guidelines for each component. Our tested value exceeds the 2025 assessments. And not just in this case, but in all cases, DREA develops assessed values for the real property only. The values do not include personal property. Below the line adjustments for the apartments are applied only in the property for the properties that offer furnished units. And these are directly tied to the income. It's easily traceable. The personal property taxes paid by the appellants are deducted under line item 35. On the I&E survey, there's no double taxation. I asked the board to confirm the 2025 assessment of $119,800,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McCraw, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to say with the previous case we discussed last week with the business personal property, there was an adjustment made by the board with the retail pro forma to kind of adjust for this business personal property deduction here. And if any adjustment needs to be made for this property, it is certainly with the retail components. The assessor in the test column, column F2, has projected a gross potential rent for the retail of $485,000, and then just deducts 6% for vacancy, which amounts to almost $30,000. In actuality, here with the major tenant departing, the commercial space as per the lease in place for all the tenants would only collect around $255,000 in annual rent here. This is not fully addressed, in our opinion, in the revised retail model introduced by the assessor. And so we would ask the board to consider further adjustments here, which correlates to the 44% of vacant space at this property, as well as our aforementioned cap rate adjustment. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board. Where, folks? Tremendous.
I think I'm all right with the current assessment. I'm looking and comparing all the numbers. It seems like this property's been in a range in the $120 million in the teens range there since 2020, and we're getting back up to the $120 million assessed value where they were in 2020. Property is performing year over year, so I think I'm okay with the current assessment.
Mr. Yates or Ms. Fenaranda? Mr. Yates?
I'm okay with the current assessment. I hear what the appellant's saying concerning the retail, but in looking at the numbers and trying to compare things out, I do think it balances out and it's a small amount difference.
Okay, anything different, Mr. Fenaranda?
No, I'm okay with it also. I was looking at the retail, as Ms. McCraw suggested, but if we look at that, then, obviously we have to look at, again, the way that the assessor did with the apartment side. So it would always come up a little bit higher. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right. Would somebody like to make a motion then?
Sure, I'll move that we confirm the county's 2025 assessment at $119,800,000.
I'll
Okay,
second.
and Mr. Yates is a second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye, opposed, none. So that is unanimous. Excuse me. The county is confirmed at $119,800,000 even. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we still have Ms. Shuttlesworth, and then I believe I saw there's Mr. Harmon. Okay, next case is RPC 13027-044, 750 North Glebe. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Annetta, good morning. So 750 Glebe, this is the Waycroft Apartments. It's 491 units. It was built in 2020. This property is in Ballston. It's the apartments and the retail that includes the Ballston Target and the Silver Diner there at Glebe and Wilson. The 2025 assessment is a 12.3% increase over last year's assessment. The county did revise this downwards a little bit. The revision is an 8.7% increase. The issues on appeal are the total rental income, the operating expenses, and the cap rate. The county is recommending a reduction of 1.5% from the original assessment, so I do thank Annetta for taking another look at that. However, the county's revision does project an increase in apartment rental income of 4.3% over what the property achieved in 2024. The revision also projects a decrease in operating expenses of 1.5% from what was reported for 2024. Now, we're all familiar with Virginia statute section 58.1-3295.1. That statute requires the board to consider the actual income and expenses reported at a property for residential buildings. Now, why did the Virginia legislature feel it was necessary to enact this statute specific for residential properties? Well, the reason is that the legislature knows that residents are responsible for paying taxes at these properties, just the same way that residents who live in single-family homes are responsible for the taxes at those properties. So the intent of the statute is to ensure that renters are treated on an equalized basis with residents who own their own homes for purposes of real estate taxes. We're all aware that when the county reviews single-family residence appeals, they use comparable sales from the prior year as the basis for the assessment. The county doesn't use prior year sales and then project an increase for the coming year when it comes to single-family residences. Yet that is what the county has done on the revision in this case. It's looked at what happened last year in 2024 for these renters, then projected an increase from those same renters of 4.3% going forward. The effect of this is to effectively treat renters in a non-uniform, non-equalized manner compared with single-family residences. The revision's 4.3% increase in rental income comes out to about $750,000 in top-line income that is speculative and results in a non-equalized assessment. Rents over the past 12 months, by the way, have averaged about 1.4%. So a 4.3% increase is not only speculative, it overshot the mark. It also treats these renters differently than homeowners in the county. Next, the revision projects operating expenses to decrease in 2025 by 1.5% over what was achieved in 2024. Now, the county did have several questions about the expenses during their review. You can see the responses explaining all of these questions, all of these expenses that were questioned, beginning on page 16 of the county's memo. There on page 16 is the detailed expense statement from 2024 that the owner provided to the county. Further detail is provided on pages 21 and 22. That's an email dated September 4th of this year. That email provides the detail as to the specific questions as to miscellaneous repairs and other expenses. So the only outstanding questions were for an entry titled Other Parking Garage and Deck Third Party. And the second question was R&M Major C&D. These questions, the first, the Other Parking Garage Third Party, that's the expenses related to the parking management company, which the owner utilizes for the garage. And the owner has utilized them for at least the past 4 years that I could check. It's likely since the building opened in 2020. The other item, the R&M Major C&D, if you turn to page 20, you can see that the owner did not include that as an operating expense. Rather, they reported it below the line as capital expenses. So that one, I'm not sure what it is. It's a $79,000 charge, but the owner did not include it as operating expenses regardless. Now, for the other expenses, I did go through all of the detailed expenses, beginning on page 16, going through page 22. I encourage the board to do the same. You can see that those detailed expenses are all legitimate expenses related to the property and are properly included as operating expenses. These are expenses that are not unusual. They're not improperly reported. They're standard multifamily expenses. Now, as a note with this, we are fair. We do take the county's questions with operating expenses seriously. We review it and we say, hey, did we miss something? Is there something that's being reported differently or shouldn't be? We try to catch that before we file an appeal, but every now and then one makes it through. One slips through the cracks and we review it and we say, you know what, you're right. And that happened just last week. The county mentioned we withdrew a case last week. They didn't mention why we withdrew it. That case we withdrew last week, the county had raised a question about expenses, specifically on one item. We reviewed it. We said, you know what, you're right. I don't think that should have been included. When you remove those expenses, the case wasn't as strong of a case, so we withdrew it. So this isn't an instance of just trying to push through any expenses. We do review them And I encourage the board also to go through pages 16 through 22 and review those detailed expenses as well. You'll see that they're all legitimate multifamily expenses, and any potential purchaser would utilize those expenses as well. The net result of the revision projecting higher effective gross income and lower expenses than what the property reported last year is an overall NOI that is 2.1% greater than what was reported in 2024. That's $341,000 higher than what the property reported last year. We just heard on the last case, the county came in at $1,700 higher than 2024 actuals. This time it's $350,000 higher than 2024 actuals. That means this property is not equalized with the last case either. Finally, the base cap rate used for the apartments is just 4.2%. 4.2%. This is a rate that's just not found in the market. It just doesn't exist for this type of property, especially for a building with nearly 500 units. Sales of comparable properties were all at a minimum of 5%, which is in line with the low end of investor surveys from PwC, RERC, and CBRE, which in a unique circumstance this year all came in saying the same minimum cap rate of 5%. CoStar shows a market cap rate for Ballston multifamily properties of 5.26%. So add to that the size of this property with nearly 500 units. It's going to limit the buyer pool because that is a very large property, which is going to also put upward pressure on the market cap rate. As it stands, the assessments cap rate is 80 basis points higher than what this market data supports. So to summarize, the county's revision treats the renters at this property differently than single family owners in the county by assuming a 4.3% increase in rents, which is contrary to Virginia law. Rents, again, have increased just 1.4% over the past 12 months. Next, the revision projects expenses will actually decrease in 2024 from what was reported in 2020, will decrease in 25 from what was reported in 24. Again, I encourage the board, take a look at the detail provided on pages 16 through 22. Those are all legitimate expenses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth for the county, please.
Yes. Thank you. So this is a high-rise apartment with 469 units. 22 are committed affordable. The property also has 60,000 square feet of retail. The appellants are contesting the potential rent, OPEX, and cap rate. During 2025 valuation, DREA overestimated apartment rent and underestimated the retail rent. Our OPEX used in 2025 valuation was also below the 2024 OPEX reported by the appellants. As the board can see in our revision columns F through F4, we separated the market units, CAF units, and the retail. Column F3 represents the cumulative figures for all three components, and it should be compared to column E. When we look at the summary sheet, we can see that both the apartment and retail potential rent have been increasing since at least 2021. We can also see that the reported vacancies and concessions have been trending down, and the 2024 reported vacancies and concessions were at 2.7%, which is below the stabilized figure. Moving down to expenses, yes, Mr. Harmon did provide feedback to me. I did inquire about the expenses reported on 2024 INE. There was a lot of communications back and forth, as the board can see. It's all included in the packet. The over $1 million of miscellaneous repairs and $500,000 worth of other admin expenses triggered this back and forth communication. Mr. Harmon provided two sets of expense breakdowns. The first set of information we received in the beginning of August. I think it was maybe second week of August. It's included in the packet. And that information did include $203,262 expense line item labeled as parking, garage, and deck. And there was another expense Mr. Harmon just mentioned, $70,000 worth of expenses that I did inquire about. So I did follow up with Mr. Harmon. Mr. Harmon just responded on September 4th And he provided second set of expense breakdown. So he provided a lot of information for which we are very thankful. However, when you take a look at the second set of information we received on September 4th, that $203,000 expense was still not explained. And the board can see it. It's at the bottom of page 21. So that second email was not only submitted after I processed the case, but also still left us in the dark because we still didn't receive the answer as to what was that $203,000 spent on. Even after receiving that information on September 4th, we still confirmed our revised reduced assessment of $292,098,900. And our projected combined NOI is 2.05%. The appellant's 2024 NOI increased by over 4%. Year prior, in 2023, the NOI increased by over 15%. And prior to that, the NOI increased by over 26%. And with all that, I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? No? Okay, Ms. Shuttlesworth, any final comments in your minute to wrap up?
Yes, thank you. So in our revision columns, we separated all three components and we used the applicable 2025 guidelines for each component. The 2024 EGI reported by the appellant increased by over 4%. Our projected EGI increased by only 1.16%. We increased our OPEX to $10,212 per unit. Our projected NOI increase is 2.05%. This is very conservative if you look at the history of this property. Yes, our revised OPEX in column F3 is below what the appellants reported in 2024. However, after 2 attempts, we were still unable to find out the $203,000 worth of expense spent on the garage. Mr. Harmon just now made a comment about that expense line item. So I asked the board to confirm the revised assessment, reduced assessment of $292,098,900. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harmon, if you take a minute to wrap up then.
Yes, thank you. So this is an annual assessment. If and when the property achieves the projected NOI that the revision states, the owner will be more than happy to pay the resulting tax bill. As it stands, the revision speculates that rents will increase by 4.3% and expenses will decrease by 1.5%, with overall NOI increasing by $341,000. This speculation as to rent growth and expense decreases treats renters at this property differently than owners of single-family residences and is contrary to the plain language of Virginia law. Now, NOI at the property has been increasing over the past few years. That's because it was just built in 2020. So as it's been stabilizing, you've seen it increasing. 2024 NOI is reflective of a stabilized operations at the property. That $200,000 charge for the parking management is not contested. I apologize that we did receive a response from the county late on that and weren't able to provide that prior, but it is a legitimate expense. Finally, the prior case, the county was just $1,700 higher in NOI than what was reported in 2024. Here, they're $341,000 higher. That's not equalized.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board. Where is everybody in this? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, so let me start by, it's a little bit hard to break up the, between column E and all the other columns there with committed affordable. So what I did is I thought the apartment rent looked high. So what I did was just in column F, I adjusted it so that column F1 was equal to what was actually reported and just went straight down the line and capped that out. And I got $281,422,500 as my final value. So I'll see if anyone agrees with me.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you just repeat that number again?
Yeah, it's 281, 422, 500.
Okay. Mr. Penaranda or Mr. Yates?
Uh,
Mr. Penaranda, go ahead.
Yes, I didn't go as far as that, but I can see that I think Mr. Harmon is correct in indicating that the expenses have not been really been going down. Looking year after year, you can see that the expenses have been going up at least $400,000 per year. And what I did is I took the revised assessments, but I increased the expenses on the apartments only to 28%. And I think, in my opinion, that brings up the total expenses for the whole unit, for the whole project to about the same increase that it's been going year after year. So by doing that, the assessment for the apartments went down to 239,726,600, and we by adding the committed affordable and the retail, it brings down a total value of 286,771,600.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
Jose, and you think the apartment revenue increasing is completely justified or balanced with the history? I know it's
think so.
increasing.
Yeah, I think so. I think what's being provided as far as the rent information, I think it shows that it's been increasing.
Okay.
Yeah, I came up with very similar, and it just may be a rounding closer to Jose's number. So, Mr. Yates, where would you be?
I could do that. I do think there's some things that are off. I could go with Jose's number too.
Okay, Mr. Mendez? Okay, all right, Mr. Penaranda?
Sure, I'll move that we reduce the assessment to 286,771,600 by increasing the expense ratio on the apartments to 28% on the revised assessment.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Well,
I opposed. Okay, so it's unanimous. The assessment is reduced to 286,771,600 based on increasing the expenses on the apartments only to 28% off the revised assessment.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Thank you.
both. Okay, Ms. Shuttlesworth is leaving us, and we have Mr. Bynes for the county, and I believe, yes, I saw Justin Price. There we go. Okay, so the next case is RPC 170110076, 2025 Wilson Boulevard. Mr. Price, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, board. Good morning, Mr. Bynes. The subject of this appeal is the Windy Apartments. This is a high-rise apartment building that was built in 2025 with 231 units and in the Clarendon Courthouse submarket. Starting off, the current assessment for the property was reduced to $110,819,200. Our requested value for this property is $102,145,100. Starting off with as I mentioned, this subject property has just been built and opened up after the evaluation date of 1/1/2025. And that being said, as of 1/1/2020, property was 100% vacant. So in our analysis, we have used the cost approach, and also a subsequent income approach as well. Starting off with our cost approach, we have provided the AIA documents that have been certified by the property owners, the developers, and also the architect at the property. And they have constructed the property for a total improvement cost of $83,888,888 $887,096. And then adding the land assessment to this value gets us to our requested value of $102,145,196. And what we have seen in neighboring jurisdictions, including DC, Fairfax, Prince William County, and so on and so forth, with newly constructed properties, they do use permits that have been pulled and also the AIA documents for the first 2 or 3 years, just because there is no stabilized income at the property. Arlington County has used the income approach. So we have also provided an income analysis in our assessment. But as I mentioned, as of the evaluation date, the property was 100% vacant. So on page 5 of our analysis, we have our income analysis next to the counties. We are not contesting the gross potential rental income. We're still using the $3,107 per unit as the county. We're using the 5% vacancy rate. We're using $9,259 per unit for the expenses. We are requesting a cap rate adjustment. As previously mentioned in previous cases of mine, and also what we have heard today, we do believe that the county's cap rate of 5.550% in this instance is not reflective of the market. In our analysis, we have seen that a 20 basis points increase is more than appropriate. So that's what we have employed in our income analysis. We're using 5.75%. And that gets us to a preliminary value of $114,209,078. We are deducting 2 years of the GPI in our analysis, which is $17,227,800. The county is using just 1 year of GPI for their below the line deduction for stabilization. And the reason why we have used 2 years of GPI is because that's what we have seen in the past. This property owner and developer actually had a sister property in Arlington County, and last year that came online, and Arlington County used 2 years of GPI below the line. So just to be consistent, that's what we're using here in this year. For the retail component, we have not made any changes. Once again, the only changes that we've made is just below the line for the minus stabilization for 2 years GPI. Instead of using $140,000, we're using $280,000. And so with that being said, with just those 2 adjustments, that's how in our income model, we come out to a total value of $98,215,580. But as I've mentioned before, the cap rate argument, if you take that cap rate argument out of our analysis, that still gets you to a value of $102,331,222, which is in line with the actual cost of the property. So we just believe that if we believe that it's important to take into consideration the cost of the property, which was taking that $83 million worth of improvement costs with the $18 million worth of land assessment, that gets us to our requested value. But if not, we can also view this in the income analysis without any cap rate adjustment, and that still gets us to a $102 million valuation. So with that being said, just with the aforementioned adjustments, we believe that $102,145,100 is more than appropriate for this assessment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bynes for the county, please.
Yes, good morning, board. Good morning, Mr. Price. Yes, the Wendy was opened recently earlier this year. It is located in the Courthouse Clarendon neighborhood. It's less than a 5-minute walk to the courthouse station. It's near ample restaurant, shopping, fitness, and entertainment options. The amenities at the property include a rooftop pool and sun deck with views of the National Mall, outdoor rooftop terrace with gas grills, outdoor yoga terrace, fully equipped fitness center, pet spa, co-working spaces, and a penthouse lounge. The main issue here today is, I believe, we are fairly close in our approaches. I believe the main issue is whether to allow for an additional 1-year lease-up deduction below the line, in addition to the 1-year deduction already provided in the assessment. As the board already knows, Arlington County values all real estate properties on an annual basis. The appellant believes there should be an additional year lease up adjusted below the line to compensate for the time it will take the property to reach stabilization. We understand the property will need time to reach stabilization. However, it will be more appropriate to determine if additional adjustments are necessary during the 2026 valuation period. We did see for the cap rate in our original assessment, we incorrectly applied a 5.55% market cap rate to 12 committed affordable units on a property. And in the revision, we applied the correct cap rate of 6.3% to these units. And that was the reason for the slight reduction in the assessment. I would like to also note that Arlington, we're continuing to see population growth here in Arlington and the surrounding area, which is increasing demand for housing in Arlington. It is reasonable to believe that stabilization for the Windy will come sooner rather than later. If we take a look at similar properties in the area, we can see new multifamily properties that have recently opened have done well to attract tenants in a short amount of time. There was the Urba, which is located in Boston, that opened in late 2023. And at the end of 2024, it had an 88% occupancy rate. The Roslyn Towers opened in the middle of 2024, and it had an occupancy rate at 61% at the end of 2024. And the Commodore, which is located right across the street from the Windy, opened late 2023 and boasted an occupancy rate of 96% at the end of 2024. With the Windy being very similar in amenities, locations, prime location, we believe that the stabilization trend will continue with this property. Based on what has happened at similar properties, it would be prudent to take a look at the stabilization of the Windy during the evaluation period to determine what additional lease-up adjustments are necessary at that time. And with that, we recommend that the assessment be reduced to $110,819,200. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Mr. Yates?
To Justin, you made a statement that the county accepted or went with a 2-year below the line on another property?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Last year, there was with the same property owner, they had a property that had a 2-year deduction below the line.
And county, what do you say about that?
Which property would that be? I'll have to take a look at it.
It was the Commodore.
Yeah, and was there an extenuating circumstance that
Yeah.
was done?
I'm not sure. I'll have to go take a look at it. If you could give me.
No, I'm asking Mr. Price, and
Oh,
so
okay.
introducing that, I mean,
No, not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, it's the same situation where the property was vacant or 100% vacant as of the actual evaluation date, 1/1/2024, and did not start having tenants occupy the property until after the evaluation date.
okay, and then that 2-year, was that put on by the board, or you're saying the county did that?
That was the county.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Bynes, do you want to take a look at that then?
Yes, I have to look that up. Give me
Sure, go ahead.
one moment here.
Absolutely.
If it pleases the board, I can actually speak to that, as that was my case last year.
Okay, Mr. Chikas.
No, there was a 1-year deduction made below the line. I'm looking at the summary sheet right now. It was made in each column for market units, for CAF units, and for the retail. but each one received 1 year of gross potential income deduction below the line.
Okay, Mr. Price, I'm not sure where you're getting that information from then.
Yeah, I got that from a colleague who was working on the property last year. So maybe they misspoke, but from what I've been told, there was a 2-year deduction, and that's why we believe that that's the just to be consistent with the county from last year.
Okay, well, if we don't have anything in writing, I don't see, when that, unfortunately, the county's presumed to be correct unless you can show us something there. So this will be open for discussion with the board members, but okay, so any other questions from board members? No? Okay, Mr. Bynes, if you want to take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Just again, we would just like to reiterate that we do recognize that the vacancy rate, because it just opened this year, so was 100%. However, we value the properties on an annual basis, and that's why we put the 1-year lease up deduction. It would be more prudent for us to evaluate the property next year and determine if there should be an additional lease up applied to the property. And also would like to note that the similar properties in the area have done well with stabilization. And with that, we just recommend again that the property be reduced to $110,819,200. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Price, if you take a minute then to wrap up.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my analysis, due to the property being 100% vacant as of the valuation date, we believe that the cost is the appropriate method of valuing the property. It will take between 2 to 3 years to stabilize, and that's what we've seen throughout Arlington County and the neighboring counties and in the neighboring jurisdictions. When looking at the AIA documents that were provided and signed by the client and the property owners, you get a improvement cost of 83 million using the land assessment of 18. That's how we believe that 102 million for the assessment is more than appropriate.
Okay, thank you both. All right, is this among the board? Where's everybody on this? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, I'm actually with the appellant on this one. If this were an office building and it were 80% vacant or 90% vacant, we've in the past bumped up the cap rate a 0.5 percentage point. This property is 100% vacant. So I ran that test, and just on the apartments, I bumped up the cap rate at 0.5, and it's right around where the appellant has for the cost approach. So I'm actually in favor of their number for the cost approach, the $102 million number.
Okay. Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't agree that we should do the cost approach or, change the cap based on comparing to office buildings. I think both the county and the appellant are agreeing in the numbers as far as the income approach. If you change the cap rate that the appellant has on their pro forma to the counties that is being used for all the other properties that are similar, and only take the 1-year deduction, I mean, you come up with the same exact number as the original assessment. So the reduction they're getting at least is, better than nothing, I guess. So I'm okay with the revised assessment.
Mr. Yates?
I was also looking up the past properties to see if I could find that, and I couldn't quite find it. Initially, when I looked at this, I thought about it, it's something that would adjust next year if needed and give another year to it. But it is just now opened. They're not going to come close. Even the one that he mentioned that was open 2/3 of the year got to a 60% occupancy. I honestly, I could really go either way with it. The below line, I think, is justified, and I was kind of interested and glad to hear that initially. But I think Mr. Cheekas did find the one and showed it wasn't. So I guess I'd have to go with the county, because if that's not what we're doing, I get it.
Right,
I do.
go ahead.
No, I
Sorry.
do hear what the appellant's saying, and I do think there's some justification there on a building that's only part of the year even available to lease.
Right, I'm with you. I'm not quite as far as Mr. Mendez, but I agree with Mr. Penaranda. So this is really a quandary here. I certainly don't want it to revert back to the
Right.
original assessment.
Exactly.
I mean, I believe it's somewhere in between those two numbers, but I don't know how to pinpoint something to get it to that. That's my problem.
Where I am too.
Mr. Mendez?
My main issue, just like Mark touched on, is there's no way that this property is going to achieve the numbers we're using for the assessment. I mean, if it's only available to lease part of the year, only a certain percentage of it will get leased up. And I understand we'll look at that next year, but just in good faith, I feel like a lower number is more realistic based on
All
that
right,
fact.
so repeat what you did again. I just want to try to.
Yeah, what I did is, again, I'm essentially just going with the appellant's cost number. What I did, I ran a test to bump up the cap rate just for the market apartments to 0.5%, and it came real close to the appellant's cost approach number. So again, I just want to go with that. I would go with that number.
And what was your final number?
It's a 102,145,100.
Yeah, that, I don't know if I can live with that. I don't know. Mark, where are you?
102 versus 110.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I agree with Mr. Penaranda to change it to the cost. It's just not equalized. I mean,
Right. That's
do
my
believe-
concern.
Yeah,
Well,
I
this
do
is a
bel-
special case.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna say this is a special case in that it's 100% vacant. We very rarely see, even 95% vacant apartment buildings in the county. So I think this is a little bit of a one-off.
And then it adjusts to what it is next year.
Yeah,
Even with,
not quite there, Mr. Mendez. Mr. Penaranda, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, yeah, but even with all the new construction that was, that has gone in the past, I don't think we've ever done any,
Right.
2-year deductions below the line or anything like that. And many of the projects were, in a similar situation. They were vacant at the time, and but by the time next year came, they were probably more than 50% occupied. So it's hard to tell, but this year after year assessment is what makes me just go with the approach that the county has used, and that it's a completed project. So going with the coast approach, I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've had other properties similar to
Yeah.
this. So
I hear the
very-
1 year. I agree. I hear the 1 year reprieve potentially, and I feel for the appellant. But I think, Jose, you're correct. And if the county is correct in the fact they've never done another year below the line, it's not an office building with a zero occupancy. I mean, it's the value of the building's there. And I think when I have to step back and think, would an owner, or excuse me, would a buyer walk in and look at this building, they're not going to take that off. They're going to think they'll lease this up.
right. And this is just opening leasing, leasing up. This is not an old building that's sitting there that's 100% vacant and has no tenants. So,
Exactly.
okay, then I'm gonna, unfortunately, Mr. Mendez, I'm not going to join you. I'm going to stay with Mr. Penaranda. So, Mark, where are you? Because again, I don't want it to revert back to the original.
No, I agree with Jose. It's
Okay. All right, Mr. Penaranda.
Sure, I'll move that we reduce the assessment to the revised number of 110,819,200.
Okay, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Okay, so it's 3-1 without Mr. Mendez. The county's revised number has been confirmed at 110,819,200.
oh, cool.
Thank you. Both. And actually, it's same players on the next case is RPC 3427071 at 3030 Potomac Avenue. Mr. Price, you can start with your 8 minutes on this property, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again and good morning. The subject of this appeal is a 2-building apartment complex, Hazel and Azure Apartments. This is at 3030 Potomac Avenue. This is a 491 unit apartment building, apartment complex. The current assessment is $174,249,300. Our requested value is $128,820,000. So for our analysis for this property, once again, this is a brand new apartment complex that opened up late 2024. So for our income and expenses, we'll only have from September to December of reported income. But looking at our analysis, we agree with the assessor of using 70% of gross potential income in the income analysis, which is what the county used. We have applied the same approach in our analysis. According to the rent roll, at full occupancy, the gross potential income is $20,435,803. In our updated analysis, we have taken 70% of this, which is $14,305,062, which is just a bit under what the county currently has it under. Also, there's a slight difference in unit count. The county is using 492, but we are using 491 in our analysis, as I mentioned before. There is 491 units at the property, and then also for the expenses, we're requesting an expense adjustment. According to the Arlington County guidelines for an apartment building that's built after 2010, the average expenses, the expenses according to the guidelines is $9,259 per unit. Currently, the county is using $6,426 per unit. So we believe that it's more than appropriate to stick with the guidelines. As we have seen in the previous case, they used the guidelines of $9,259. Seeing that both of these properties are brand new, we don't see a reason why the commercial guidelines should not be used in this instance. And then in the submitted BOE package, we are still relying on that two years of rent loss. But after further discussion, I understand that other properties are just doing the 1 year. So I've also done analysis using just the 1 year, still using $14.3 million for the gross potential income, using $9,259 per unit, which is $4,546,169, and then a below the line deduction of $14,305,000. That gets us to a apartment building a value of $140,472,300. We are not making any adjustments to the commercial space. So that gives us a total economic unit for the property at $143,125,100. So that there's just with making the adjustments once again to the gross potential income, using the expense guidelines, and also making that 1 year deduction, 1 year of gross potential income below the line. as I mentioned, I know in our package, we're requesting a value of 128 million, but I believe it's more than fair with those adjustments that the assessment could be $1,143,125,100.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Bynes for the county, please.
Yes, Hazel and Zur is a two-building apartment complex in Nashville Landing, which is less than a 5-minute drive from Reagan International Airport. It was opened back in November 2024. It is near ample restaurant, shopping, fitness, and entertainment options. The amenities at the complex include rooftop resort style pool on each. Each of these amenities are available at each building. 24-hour fitness center with a yoga room, outdoor kitchen, outdoor lounge with fireplace, resident lounge, co-working spaces, a conference room, 24-hour resident market, EV chargers, and bike storage. Like we said, the appellant is arguing for an adjustment to the units. Their basis for adjusting from 492 to 491 in their packet was that one unit is being used as a model unit. We believe that this model unit should be included because the owner could change this unit into a leasable unit at any time, and this unit is absorbed into the vacancy rate that we established. Also, as the appellant agreed, the 1-year lease-up period for the property was given because all properties are annually assessed here in Arlington County, and in 2026, we will determine if a further adjustment is needed at the property during that time. In the assessment, the appellant brought up that we did use a 70% projection of the GPI, and we also used a 70% projection of the operating expenses. The appellant said that in our previous case that we used a full expense. We did not do that. We also used the same methodology in that case also. And again, I will state again, this area is continuing to see population growth, which is increasing the demand for housing in Arlington. It is reasonable to believe that this apartment complex will become stabilized sooner rather than later. Again, I would like to reiterate that the URBA had an 88% occupancy rate at the end of 2024 when it opened at the end of 2023 within 1 year. The Roslyn Towers had an occupancy rate of 60% at the end of 2024 when it opened in the middle of 2024. And the Commodore had a 96% occupancy rate at the end of 2024 when it opened, similarly to Hazel and Zur in 2023. Based on what has happened at these similar properties and it will be more prudent to look at a stabilization of Hazel and Azure during the valuation period to determine what additional lease-up adjustments are necessary. And the county recommends that the 2025 assessment be confirmed at $174,249,300. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? None? Okay, Mr. Bynes, if you take a minute to give us any final comments.
Yes, I would just like to reiterate that we do assess on an annual basis, and the 1-year lease-up deduction is consistent with what we have done with similar properties across the county. During the evaluation period, we will analyze the performance at the property and determine what appropriate actions are necessary at that time. Stabilizations at newer properties similar to Hazel and Azure have seen have seen stabilization occurring quickly within a short amount of time. And again, the county recommends the 2025 assessment be confirmed at $174,249,300. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Price, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Yes, ma'am. So, I'm not, we're not arguing about stabilization or anything like that. We agree with the county's methodology using 70% of the GPI. But we're just requesting that to use the actual GPI for according to the rent roll, also using the county's stabilized expense rate of $9,259 per unit, and then also applying the appropriate deduction below the line of the 1 year GPI. And with that, you get a value of 143 million. So I'm not sure why, they're not willing to budge on the expenses when they're focused on stabilization, and they put in their guidelines that $9,259 is what a stabilized expense ratio is.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. Where's everybody on this? Mr. Yates?
I'm good with the county. I agree a little bit with the appellant on the expenses. However, it's a brand new building. I'm sure they're continuing with some cleanup items from a construction standpoint. I cannot see the expenses being the same as most other more established long-term buildings. So I'm fine with the expenses. But the county's projected, and it'll adjust next year based on what it really was.
Okay. Mr. Penrod or Mr. Mendez?
I'm okay with the county the way it is right now. The expenses allowed in this project are a little bit higher than the previous case that we saw, so
Right.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Mr. Mendez, anything different? No? Okay, all right. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment at $174,249,300.
Second.
Okay, and Mr. Yates is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The county is confirmed at $174,249,300. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last case on the agenda, RPC 140536062, signed a reduction letter yesterday afternoon, so it has been removed from the agenda. So that completes the agenda for today. Does anybody have any other business before the board? No? Okay, then we will stand adjourned at 10:12, reconvene tomorrow morning in person for board members at 9 a.m. Wednesday, September 17th. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.